And welcome back to our next edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. I am Dan Siegel, joined by my co-hosts Ben Anderson and Mat Mlodzinski. And this is our last episode until Selection Sunday. We are recording here live on Monday, March 11th. And we already have 4 teams in the tournament. They've gotten auto bids. We'll discuss those. We had some big-time matchups this past weekend and that to end the regular season. We'll discuss those. And the main point of the episode, we'll discuss the Power 7 conference tournaments and some of the teams that could make runs in those. I will be at the Big East tournament. I'm not sure, Matt, if you'll be anywhere, but it'll be a lot of fun. And everyone's locked in on March now. So how are you guys doing before we get this started? I'll start with you, Matt.
Yeah, no, I won't be going to any conference tournaments or the NCAA tournament this time around. But, I mean, that's the cool thing. All you guys that are listening, watching right now, we're going to be at a bunch of conference tournaments. We've got Ariel Putterman. He's going to be at the Big 12 tournament. Dan and Ryan Poutre will be at the Big East tournament. We've got people going to multiple NCAA tournament venues. And our very own TJ O'Sullivan will be representing College Basketball Review at the Final Four. So coverage all throughout the NCAA tournament. So just keep it locked on March, but keep it locked on CBB Review as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to get into what I think is the third best weekend in the sport, behind only this upcoming first weekend of March Madness and Thanksgiving weekend or Thanksgiving week. So Feast Week, in my opinion, is still better than the conference tournament week. But I mean, we can't be sad about this. We're so
that's a hot take in itself, but we don't have to spend too much time debating because we all know, it's huge. So let's get into the scores of last week before we get into some of the conference tournaments. So here we go. Started with this one. Oh, we lost Ben again. Oh, he's back. All right. This one was on midweek, I think Tuesday. Purdue 77, Illinois 71. Purdue is starting to really win in Purdue fashion. I mean, Zach Edey doing his thing, but a big thing that I saw was the guards in the final minute hitting back-to-back huge threes to ice the game, something that I was not sure I would necessarily see out of Purdue. Lance Jones hit one, I think, to go up by maybe – it was a tie game when Lance Jones hit his. I believe that was the case. And then Braden Smith hit a really deep three to ice the game. And I that's very encouraging for Purdue at this time of year to see something like that.
Yeah, I think Fletcher Loyer arguably is the most important player on any team in terms of reaching that team's ceiling, because if Fletcher Loyer plays well throughout March, they're a national championship contender, no doubt about it. But I do think they need that piece, the Boilermakers do, in order to give Zach Edey the room to operate inside, in order to have multiple ball handlers that can operate in tight situations like they did against Illinois. But that three-headed monster of Smith, Loyer, and Jones in the backcourt for Purdue is super important for their success overall heading into March.
Yeah, I mean that's what's going to carry Purdue. I mean that's the whole story. It's been the story throughout the season. Can these guards get Purdue over the top? Obviously, a guy like Lance Jones has been incredible, in addition to this team. I do want to take it in a different direction to another game here, and that's the Connecticut game against Marquette. A Marquette team that kept it close, as they could for a little bit, not at full strength. Really down the stretch in the second half, they made a little bit of a run there. But a UConn team that once again shows why they are one of the top teams in the country. I've been saying this over the past however amount of weeks, months, whatever it may be, that this Connecticut team, they're better than they were last year. They've got more options. They are they're a Final Four contender for another season. And I think we saw that again. But I say do keep an eye on Marquette, because I think that game can help the Golden Eagles, because you're not at full strength. You're playing a team that is 1, 2, or 3 in the country, whatever way you look at it. And I think that's going to help some of these secondary players on Marquette maybe get some confidence from that, knowing that they were able to stick with them down the end. And I want to see how Marquette moves forward with that.
Yeah, we all presume Tyler Kolek will be okay enough to play in the Big East tournament. I think that was more just like damage control to keep him out in the less meaningful end of regular season games. UConn, they're just elite. Like, they're the only team in the country that I don't point at them and say, oh, they could use this specific type of player to really help them complete their team. They have a big that could shoot. That's Caravan. They have a dominant rim protector in Klingon. They have their NBA talent, Stefan Castle. You need a veteran guard. You got Cam Spencer. I mean, like, they have every single type of player you need. So that is, I don't know, like, it's very rare to see a team run it back to back, but that's just based on sheer probability. Like, March Madness is very tough for the best teams even to win. I still think UConn could be the first in a long time to do it. Tennessee and South Carolina, moving on a little bit down the list here. I mean, that's just a better team beating a worse team here. So I don't have much to say on that. Boise State, San Diego State, that's just a huge win for the Broncos to really, I think, secure their tournament placement. They're moving up. I believe they're on like the 9 or 8 line now these days. So if you guys want to talk about either of those two games, there's not much takeaways from my end, but also the final 3 games, there's some stuff to talk about. So I'll throw it to you guys. Ben, it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, just on Tennessee, they did clinch the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament with that win over South Carolina. So even though they lost later in the week to Kentucky, that was important for the Vols. And I think that if I had to pick one team to go the farthest, it would probably be Tennessee in the SEC tournament. And NCAA, it's a little, I don't know, it depends on the region, of course, but I feel like the Vols have been the most consistent over the course of the season. And even with the loss at home to Kentucky to close out the regular season, that was just an unreal performance by both teams. It was probably one of the top 5 games of the season for me in terms of just it being enjoyable to watch, right? The shot making was off the charts for both Connect on Tennessee's side, and then Shepard and Reeves each had some major onions for Kentucky. So a lot of just I just think that even with that loss to Kentucky at home, Tennessee is still the least volatile of all the top teams in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point there you make. I mean, that was an incredible game, by the way. Both these games, especially moving down the list in that second game that Tennessee played this week. You just have to give credit to the fact, though, that the Vols were able to hang in there after already playing a tough South Carolina team and then playing Kentucky. Like, that is a tough schedule to end the regular season on. So I think that's where I want to give credit for Tennessee. They're definitely going in battle-tested to this SEC tournament. If they lose early in the SEC tournament, I'm not discounting anything because I think that's a very tough way to end the regular season. Obviously, a few days off. We'll see where they're at after that. Houston. I'll be honest. UConn and Purdue were locks at 1 seeds. I think Houston was pretty close to a lock. They are now a lock to a 1 seed. I mean, I know that, we're all talking about Kansas, and this doesn't seem to be the typical Kansas team, especially with how many Big 12 losses they have. Houston, to me, like, in one game, they moved from like 1 win a bit away from being a 1 seed lock to all of a sudden, like, could they be the best team in the country? I mean, they blew the brakes off the Jayhawks. I'm not ready to make that statement yet, but 2 weeks ago, if someone told me Houston was the best team in the country, I probably would have laughed and been like, that's just a bold take, man. Good one. It's Purdue or UConn. If someone tells me that now, they've got a really good point because Houston looks great right now. And this is the time to be playing that type of basketball.
Yeah, and speaking of 1 seeds and, getting onto that one line, I think that UNC Duke game was very, very critical in that respect. I mean, Arizona losing to USC was also very helpful, but UNC 84, Duke 79. I mean, both of the Duke UNC games, it was UNC going up early and Duke fighting from behind for pretty much all 80 of those minutes. I think it proves that UNC is the best team in the ACC, but also it's also a tough matchup for Duke. But then again, like, you look at UNC and they're dynamic enough to be a tough matchup for just about anyone. So I think barring an upset in the ACC tournament, even with maybe an upset in the ACC tournament, depending on how everything else shapes out, I think UNC is in a pretty good spot for that final 1 line, although it could go to a bunch of different teams. And then ending off this segment, a Kentucky take. There have been so many times this year where I think I texted this to Ben, like, 35 minutes into a Kentucky game, I'm like, man, this team has it. They're finally starting to defend. They're so athletic. They could score every possession. They have crazy amounts of talent. And I'm like, this Kentucky team is finally going to be the one that breaks through. And then the final 5 minutes, they just cannot possibly close out a game. I mean, offensively, sometimes it's like Calipari cannot draw up a play. There have been some disastrous ends of games there, and then defensively they can't make a stop. Like I don't know what to make of Kentucky, but that's been the team I've been so back and forth on just all year long. And I mean, we'll preview the SEC tournament in a little bit. I think they're lined up to potentially play Alabama, and I'm interested to see what either of those teams could do in an environment like that. Let's move on to some of the lower major conference games and tournaments that ended off this past week. So we have 4 auto bids decided. 4 teams have punched their ticket, and then 2 more will tonight. We got the Sun Belt and the SoCon championships tonight. But the Ohio Valley, we had Morehead State. The Big South, we had Longwood, who had a losing record in the Big South. So that's crazy to see them in the NCAA tournament now. Missouri Valley, we had Drake beat Indiana State, which is a little bit unfortunate for all the Robbie Avila fans out there because Indiana is like 50-50 at this point, like right on that bubble. And then the A-Sun, another slightly unexpected result here with Stetson. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to talk about these individually, but my overall takeaway is the 1 seeds of these conferences all going down like crazy. And I think Ariel is on the train with me that the West Coast Conference, the WCC, where you have single, double, and triple buys, is probably best for a lot of these conferences just because you actually validate the regular season. I understand that it's so exciting the way that these conference tournaments are, formatted, but it's really unfair to have 20 exhibition games in the regular season and then just like one game decides who achieves the biggest goal, wins the conference, and goes to March. So that's my opinion. I'm a big WCC format fan, but I know a lot of people have their takes on this, so I'll throw it to you guys.
Yeah, it looks stupid, but I think it does the job. And you could be argued that the WCC is actually the worst conference to use this format for, because the likelihood, if you're looking statistically, the likelihood is that one of, if not both, of St. Mary's and Gonzaga will have bids anyway. So you're going to probably want the 3 or 4 seed to win. So you actually would probably rather have St. Mary's and Gonzaga play more games and lose, so that there's an easier path for San Diego or San Francisco or whoever happens to be, in that top 5, Santa Clara, right? But I agree with you and Ariel here. I think that more conferences should adopt that, especially if you're looking at like the Big Sky, right? Eastern Washington lost again in the quarterfinals. I know they're not on the screen right now, but it's been brutal for a lot of them, especially High Point. You just see that great season that Allen Huss had, right? And then it can be done in one game. But congratulations to all of these teams on here, especially Longwood coming back. They made the tournament 2 years ago, 2 years ago, something like that. And they are back. So, I mean, they've done a great job. That's a really tough job, right? To be in Farmville over there in Virginia. It's not an easy school to be the coach of, but to have them in the tournament again is really cool. So I want to shout them out in particular.
Yeah, and just to piggyback too off of your comment as well, Ben, like I think that it is kind of a funny conference where it does happen in the WCC. Like other conferences could maybe use it more than they could as far as the way that the tournament is set up. What I will say is that I really like how the NCAA doesn't regulate how conferences are supposed to hold their tournaments. Like, yeah, everyone looks at the West Coast and how weird like that bracket is set up, but when you look at some of these other conference tournaments, you've got like usually if there's 10 teams, the 7 will play the 10, the 8 will play the 9. Well, there's some tournaments where the 7 plays the 8 and the 9 plays the 10. There's other tournaments where some teams don't get in at all. Like it's a little bit different throughout the country. I think that's something that adds to the fun of it because every league really feels like its own true league, even though it's one governing body in the NCAA. I want to highlight Morehead State real quick, though. I mean, this is a team that played a real tough non-conference schedule. I'm talking Alabama and Purdue, 2 of their first 3 games. In fact, their first 2 D1 games because they had Shawnee State in between there. Also played a game against Penn State. But you look at the schedule that they had a really good run at one point in the season. They started off the season 2-3, right? And they actually lost 3 straight at one point in the year. They've now won 6 straight. So you take out those 9 games. I mean, there was like a 22 game stretch where Morehead State had only lost like once or twice. So I think the fact that they've now won 6 straight entering into March right now, it's dangerous because we've seen what this team is capable of doing. Sure, are they probably going to get a 14 seed, 15 seed? Yeah. But the thing is we've seen Morehead State do it before in the NCAA tournament. There's maybe something about that school. And they just have the type of a makeup, the OVC. It's a better mid-major conference than a lot of them out there. They've definitely played some competition. I think if you're the wrong team and you're underlooking them, I would say that they're a team to put on upset alert once we get to the real bracket.
Yeah, you say like, oh, there might be a 14 to 15. If we even have like a 15 over a 2 or 6, even a 16 over a 1 this year, are we at the point where we won't even need to do an emergency pod just because it's becoming so common? Like, I remember.
I hope that it stops.
What's up?
I hope that it stops. Sorry to interrupt. I hope that like for a few years it would be nice to have no 16s over 1s, or like it makes it better, I think, that if there's time in between so that it still feels special that an upset is happening.
Oh, okay. I see your take there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this when we get the actual bracket, but I actually think the 16 over 1 is less likely this year than usual just because the top 3 teams are so strong. But this might be a year where 15 over 2 comes back, right? Like, I don't know who's going to end up with those last couple 2 seeds, and I don't feel a ton of trust in Marquette or Creighton if it comes, or Iowa State necessarily. It'll be interesting to see what the bracket shakes out to be.
Yeah, I think the biggest we'll let's get to the conference tournaments in a sec. The last thing I'll say on that is I think like the 4 to 5 lines will be the strongest that they've been, because like there's just so many good teams that have upside that haven't necessarily won all their games this year. There's a lot of like 9-10 loss teams that are still very capable. So with that said, let's get into conference tournaments. We're going to preview the Big 7. The other, 25 we did last week. So check that out because some of them obviously are still in the preliminary stages. But here we go. We got the ACC tournament. I know this is a little small on the screen, but we've got, I'll start with my team, Virginia. They are there on that 3 line in the bottom of the bracket, and they're right on the bubble. I think my take with Virginia is you want to play Clemson, right? You don't want Boston College. You don't want who's there? Miami. Like, you don't want anybody besides Clemson to play you. And this goes for a lot of bubble teams. You want to play the better teams in the conference tournaments. And the reason why is because if you play a bad team, it's a lose neutral situation, right? If you beat them, nothing happens. If you lose, you could get knocked out. So I think that's my preliminary take with Virginia, but there's a lot going on here. I'll throw it to you guys.
Yeah, Matt, I don't know. You're the bracket expert out of the 3 of us probably, but the more and more I look at Virginia's resume, the more and more I think that with that win over Georgia Tech, if they play Clemson, I think they're probably in no matter what, unless mad amount of bid thieves start coming up. The one I'm more interested in the ACC in particular is Wake Forest, because if Wake and Pitt play right in the quarterfinals, I don't know what to do with the winner of that game. Like, because Pitt, I think if they win, right, and they keep it close against Carolina, they could sneak in. They could. I don't know if it's going to be guaranteed, but the storyline here is not who's going to win. I think it's pretty likely that it's going to be either Carolina or Duke, and within that, I think it's pretty likely it's going to be Carolina. But the story is more that 3 through 6 line.
Yeah, I think just to say about Virginia right now, I mean, you look at their metrics. Like, my last 4 in right now was Villanova, Texas A&M, Indiana State, and Providence. Virginia was the next team above. So they were my exact last team with a bye. And the reason I went there is because they're only 2-6 in the quad 1 games. I made this bracket yesterday, so I haven't totally updated these rankings, today. But I was making it through the night. But they're 6-3 in quad 2. So you figure, 8-9 in those quad 1 and 2 games, 14-0. In quad 3 and 4. That's a big thing there. Sure, they've played more, so their strength of schedule doesn't look as good, but they haven't lost one. Most teams on the bubble have lost at least one Q3 or 4 game. So I think that really helps Virginia's case out. Their KenPom isn't that good, but 32nd in strength of resume. I mean, that's a very good number to have. I think that's going to help them a long ways. And going off that, take it into this. I mean, I think for Virginia, just keep winning and they can improve their seed. But I don't think unless James Madison loses tonight and they were to get in, and I don't know if there's any other bid stealers, out of the A10 or out of the. I mean, if UNLV goes and wins the Mountain West, which they're more than capable of, if a different team wins the American, then there could be room to panic. But I think as long as Virginia just wins a game in the tournament, they should be fine. But I will say that the top half of this bracket is what intrigues me the most, because I feel like Virginia Tech could be a sleeper team just with how they could be able to play if they get past Florida State. They have enough offense where I feel like maybe Virginia Tech can shoot it a little bit, give North Carolina some trouble. And then obviously if Pittsburgh were to match up with Wake Forest, that could just be an incredible bubble game right there on the top half of the bracket. It could be winners in, loser is sweating it or probably out. Or, I mean, there's just so much that can happen on the top half there. And obviously if Pitt and Wake do play, the winner gets North Carolina. So then you have a real chance to lock yourself in. And wow, I'm just getting hyped about this ACC, man.
However, Wake would be the type of team to lose to Georgia Tech.
I mean, they literally just did. I was just about to say that. And even Notre Dame, Notre Dame is the other potential team. I think that's also a trap game for Wake Forest.
They lost to Notre Dame too. They lose to everyone, especially away from home.
We got that question up from our Connecticut affiliate here. Sorry for blocking you out, Ben.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember 2 years ago.
I'm very confident that we can score more than 50 against whoever we play in the quarterfinal. Don't ask about if we play Duke.
All right, I will say, my UVA fandom aside, I think a vast majority of the country is rooting for UVA to not make the tournament. And the entertainment value is so low with that team. That said, resume is resume, and that's what the committee will decide from. My last take on the ACC, I mean, Matt, you would know more about this than myself, but Syracuse got themselves a nice little path there. And they did get smoked by the two teams in the double bye at the bottom of the bracket there in UVA and Duke. But that was a long time ago. So I think they do have a favorable path just because they're avoiding North Carolina. But I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
I think the only way Syracuse could even make it as an at-large is if they get to the ACC championship final. I don't even think the semifinal run gets them in.
No, I just mean to make some noise. I didn't mean anything in terms of March Madness, but just
yeah.
I don't see them winning 4 games, but they could be a spoiler kind of thing.
They honestly, for Syracuse, it's about, do they have enough strength that day? Can they body up and up down in the post? And that's how Duke destroyed them in that lone regular season game. But if Chris Bell can get hot, he's arguably one of the best shooters in the ACC. I mean, he had that game where he had 8 threes, 8 for 8 in one half against North Carolina State. I'm sure they are not happy about seeing Syracuse the third time, considering the Orange swept them in the regular season. That's what I see. I mean, it's not. I don't get the sense that Syracuse can make a run, but sure, if they can get hot, then yeah. But that's like most teams, right?
Yeah. All right. You want to move on to Big 12?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Big 12. So a little small again. Sorry about that, but this is anyone's game. I mean, I think the way to start is with Houston. So if you can't see there, they are right there automatically in the quarterfinals. They would be playing TCU and Oklahoma, the winner of that game. TCU could be tough for Houston. I mean, TCU literally did beat Houston in the regular season, and I think that's not a fluke. They are really the type of team that can beat Houston. They speed the game up. They could match them on the boards. And my overall take is I really like BYU and their path because that could really open things up. Let's say TCU does beat Oklahoma. Then at the top you have BYU. I would hope they would get past that second round game, and then playing Texas Tech, that I would favor BYU by a point or two. That I think BYU is my non-top 4. I mean, they're the 5 seed. That's maybe not a hot take, but they're a team with a more favorable path, I would say, outside of Houston, maybe Iowa State.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the value is on the betting lines right now in the market, but I would imagine BYU probably has the most value at this point. I can't imagine they're above the 6th favorite to win the tournament at this point, just because I still think they'd put Kansas above BYU in terms of likeliness. How about Kansas as a 6 seed, by the way? Isn't that crazy? Like, you just don't see that, especially in the Big 12, especially under Bill Self. One thing to note about Houston is that this didn't show up, obviously, in the Kansas win because they won by 30, but I'm interested to see what the injury of JoJo Tugler will do to the Cougars, especially as you get into the more competitive games, right? The semifinals, the finals. He was a pretty valuable piece, especially defensively for Houston. Provided some front court depth. So, I would have loved to see a perfectly healthy team, and that includes Terrace Arsenault, who's been out for the season. But Houston, I still think, should probably be the favorite, given all that we said. I think they're the most consistent out of any team that we've seen, especially like if you look at some of the higher end ones like Baylor. You never know what you're going to get with Baylor, in my opinion. They always seem to either win or lose games by 3 points. And everything's always close when I check out a Baylor box score. Iowa State kind of laid an egg against Kansas State, but that happens. It's the Big 12. I don't know. I still think it's we're headed for a rubber match here between Houston and Iowa State in the finals, just based on how the regular season played out.
Yeah, and I guess for my takes on this, like TCU Oklahoma is an important game. TCU should be in. Oklahoma also should be in, but if Oklahoma were to lose that game by like 12 or 15 points, I think Sooner fans are probably going to be like a little bit worried. I mean, I still think they're in just because they've done enough throughout the season, but I wouldn't say they're a lock on Selection Sunday if they lose that game by double digits. Kansas State has a real good opportunity to pick up a big win over Texas. They obviously had that big win over Iowa State earlier to end the regular season, and they have another crack at them there. So I'm sure they're feeling good about their chances. I know it's tough to beat a team twice in that span of time, but if you just did it once, you're probably feeling confident. And am I crazy to say let's keep an eye on Cincinnati? I mean, their metrics are very, very good. They're 3-10 in quad one, so that's not helping them that much. But you get past West Virginia, you get a chance at a Kansas team that has just been playing awful. That would be a quad one win right there. You'd give them 4 quad one wins. Like maybe Cincy goes on a little bit of a run there. No one's really taking them too seriously. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Cincinnati, I'd say there's not many first round games of Power 6, Power 7 conference tournaments that I say, hey, keep an eye on that. But I'm kind of intrigued with the Cincinnati game.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with Kansas. I know they have very much a lack of a bench, a lack of depth, but they also, I feel like with their top 4 or top 5, they shouldn't be losing these games. They shouldn't be having 46 points in a game, even playing the best defense in the country. It makes no sense to me. You mentioned Oklahoma TCU. Yes, that game will matter, but I think of all the conference tournaments, this one is definitely the one where we have the best feel who's already in, who's already out. It won't have big bubble implications in general. So that's the Big 12. Let's move on to the one that I will be at. And that's the Big East tournament. So we've got, I don't know. I think this one also, of the 7 we're going to preview today, probably the most chalky. I don't know, where's the upset potential that we see? It's really hard for me not to see UConn playing in that championship game on Saturday. Maybe the bottom half of that bracket in the quarterfinals, that's something could happen there. Villanova, they're really right on that bubble, so they're going to need a win pretty badly. Providence could make a little bit of noise. And then that could set up who's going to play UConn in the championship. That could set up a pretty interesting semifinals matchup. But I think of the 7, this is definitely the chalkiest.
Yeah, if I had to pick someone from the first round to win multiple games, it'd probably be Providence, just because Devin Carter's the best player out of all 6 of those teams, in my opinion. And guards win in March, as everyone says. But this is just screaming like a UConn Creighton matchup where UConn wins by 13 in the finals. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem, it's not the most interesting to me, just because the Huskies have been so dominant. You've had the times where they slipped up, and then Creighton has that unbelievable night, right? The perfect Omaha game right at home. But once it comes to MSG, I don't really see Dan Hurley losing in this, especially in this layout of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get UConn playing in a home game against pick your poison, one of two Midwest teams that might not even know how to fly into New York City, let alone get away once they get into the city. I don't know if they're going to be able to find their way into the Garden or not. We'll have to see if people from Omaha or Milwaukee know how to do that. All jokes aside, but actually being serious about that, keep an eye on Villanova. They're going to should be a cakewalk over DePaul. Maybe they'll get hot in that game. They'll be feeling themselves. They'll be playing the next game. Who knows where Tyler Kolek will be at injury-wise heading into that game. And if I know anything from spending 4 years at Seton Hall, it's that Villanova, before UConn came into the Big East again, Villanova ran the Garden. They will be there. That will be a home game for Villanova against Marquette. And I would not be shocked to see that team, that Wildcats team, pick up a huge win there and lock themselves into the tournament with a win in the quarterfinals. And, of course, I have to say, that Seton Hall St. John's game will be very fun. You got two New York City area teams right there, one legit New York team, one New Jersey team. It's a 4-5 matchup. It's a huge game for both. St. John's really needs the win. I still think Seton Hall needs it to feel comfortable. And, of course, Providence and Georgetown. Ed Cooley facing his old team. The storylines are here in the Big East tournament, and it's always the best tournament in Champ League, right?
Yeah, it usually I know Ben says and I say it's like we have a pretty good feel of how it's gonna go, but it does usually turn out very good. Especially the experience. I've been to the Big East tournament multiple times. It's the environment's so much fun. And they're basketball schools, right? It's not a football conference, they're basketball schools. So there's a lot to be said about that. We've got the Big Ten up next. This one, for starters, I know there's some bubble teams in this conference, but the championship always happening and right up against Selection Sunday makes me think that they are going to have the bracket already selected by the time the championship is happening. But either way, I think the first thing that stands out to me here is a potential Purdue Northwestern rematch in the semifinals, because Northwestern seems to be the team that's got the formula most to beat Purdue. I believe both regular season meetings, both a while back, but they both went to overtime and they split the games. So I would love to see a Purdue Northwestern rematch. And then Ben, I know you have takes on this. What do we make of Illinois? Could we possibly trust them? I don't know.
I would say yes, but however, I'm looking at Ohio State. And you remember what they did last year, yeah? Made it to the finals, the championship game of the tournament, I believe, right? It was at least the semis. They had this great run. They weren't near an at-large, but they made things a little dicey for some bubble teams up until the end. Who's to say they can't do that again, right? I think if Illinois and Nebraska were switched on that on the field right there, I'd feel a lot more confident in Illinois making it to the championship game. But the winner of Ohio State and Iowa scares me a little for the Illini. But if they get past that, I do like their matchup against Nebraska. I just think they can out-talent the Cornhuskers in a way that not many other teams can in the Big Ten. And I don't know, man. Hey, I have a question for y'all. How many of these games are you legitimately excited to watch?
Games that are already
yeah.
Like if we go chalk.
Purdue Northwestern.
And Purdue. Is Illinois the 2 seed, right?
Yeah. Purdue, Illinois. I'm not excited.
I'd add
Iowa will be fun in itself. And then Wisconsin,
Northwestern. I think Wisconsin, Northwestern.
Yeah, okay.
But those are good, not amazing.
Stretching. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same appeal to me. However, I think Purdue's in their element right now, as you said earlier in the pod, Dan. I just think they make it through. I just think this is going to be a business trip for them. I think they're going to win the Big Ten tournament pretty easily, actually.
Yeah, but as far as the bottom half is concerned, if we want any high seed in a power conference championship, it's probably this one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think also that Ohio State Iowa game, if you look at a bubble game, that's a pretty big one, because Ohio State is low key on the bubble now, especially if they win that game. They would probably also need to beat Illinois, but then if they win an even match game with Iowa and then upset Illinois, which they're more than capable of, like I would actually feel really good about Ohio State against any of those other 4 teams on the bottom half of the bracket between Michigan, Penn State, Indiana, and Nebraska. Like, is it crazy for me to think that Ohio State is the 10 seed has, like, outside of obviously the 2 and the 3 seed in Illinois, Nebraska, like they probably have the 3rd best chance at making it all the way. Because I don't see like Iowa making it there, but I could definitely see Ohio State making it to the Big Ten championship.
Like, how many times have we seen these stories where a team like a fringe bubble team, pretty much outside the bubble, makes a run in conference tournament season, and we think, oh, that'll get them onto the bubble, that might get them on. They lose in the conference championship and they're not selected. Like, maybe we overrate the value of conference tournaments for bubble teams or teams just off the bubble.
Matt, I have a question for you. If Michigan State loses to Minnesota, are they in any danger of missing completely?
I'd say they should like worry about it, but like I still have them as a 9 seed, which is crazy. 8 seed in the Big Ten, 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I think you could make the argument that they're a 10 seed, but like them and Gonzaga, and obviously Gonzaga finally started winning, so it turned out to be all right. But like Michigan State's metrics are all still like top 30 across the board. Like they have like no bad metrics. They might have like one bad metric off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, if they were to lose that game, I think you could probably make a case to be like, okay, when do we look at metrics and just throw them out the window? Because obviously this team is 18 and 14, sort of like Villanova. Michigan State and Villanova, exact same right there.
Yeah.
18 and 14, man.
Yeah, right.
Like if JMU loses tonight, you know what I mean, and Michigan, and then they get.
If you're a fan of a bubble team, you're a big James Madison fan tonight. By the way, keep an eye out for that one. But we got 3 more to get to. Let's go with the Mountain West up next. So, we talked about the Big Ten, Big East maybe being a little chalky in most cases. Who knows about this one, right? It's like starting on right? Okay, those Wednesday matchups are kind of lame, but like starting on Thursday, they're like every game is pretty much a toss up. I mean, some of the storylines here, we got New Mexico, who is right on that bubble, so they'll need to win a few games to feel really secure about their chances. UNLV also on bid stealer watch. They had a terrible non-conference slate, but as you can see, they're a number 4 seed. They could beat anybody in the Mountain West consistently, and they've played a lot better ball in the second half of the season than the first half. But I don't know. I want to hear your guys' takes first, because I don't know who I like to win this. Maybe it's just the 1 seed Utah State, but it could be anybody. This will be a fun one.
You go ahead, Ben.
I think that the winner will come out of the top half of the bracket. That's my lukewarm take, right? Because I still think San Diego State is the best team in the conference, regardless of what their seed is, regardless of what their record is, just like overall. They have the best player, in my opinion, and Jaden Ledee, right? Who's borderline first-team All-American, if you look at his production. And I just trust them the most. And then UNLV is the most wild cardy team in the entire country at this point, I think, right? Like people are like saying, oh yeah, UNLV should be second in odds, to win the tournament, right? At this point. What do we think here? That's my lukewarm take, is that it's going to be one of 3 teams that wins the whole thing. It's either going to be San Diego State, UNLV, or Utah State.
All right. I don't even have a take here. I have a scenario where there is a 7-bid Mountain West. Yeah. Actually, it can happen a few ways, but the most likely way. Utah State is in no matter what. Nevada's in no matter what. I believe that Boise State is in no matter what. And San Diego State is in no matter what. Colorado State and New Mexico certainly need those first wins in the opening round. And even if Colorado State loses to Nevada in a close game, I think they are in. But if they beat Nevada, then they are a lock. New Mexico probably does need to beat Boise State to feel a little bit better, because they've tailed off and their metrics aren't as good. So I think New Mexico would have to beat Boise State. And then let's not forget that this is being played at the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas. UNLV has played spoiler all season long. Their metrics actually are worthy to be under consideration. I have UNLV under consideration, which is why I said this could be an 8-bid Mountain West League if UNLV were to make the championship. And I don't know, maybe I can't go that far because no one else on the bottom is like good enough to make a run all the way. But I just say this because like everyone's been in love with the Mountain West all season long, and like there's a way. We've been joking 6-bid Mountain West, like it could legitimately be 7 if you.
Yeah. Do you think 5's the most likely number though?
I think 6. I think they're gonna get 6.
You think? Okay. Like, what did I think the PK10 got like 6 at their best. So that's pretty notable. I like Utah State though. I think we can see like a lot of like craziness. And then Utah State, the 1 seed, just end up coming out of this one just because they're playing their best ball right now. I think they're also, you look at their roster, they're equipped to win games in consecutive days. I mean, like they have enough depth. I think they're just like a pretty well-rounded team. San Diego State maybe doesn't have as much offensive firepower, although they do have Ladie. But I think I'm with Ben on the top half take here. I like the top half teams more than the bottom half teams. All right. Last one, SEC. I talked about this in the very beginning.
Got one more, Dan, after this. Got one more.
Oh, we do. Oh, I forgot about the Pac-12. How can you forget about that one, right? But SEC, oh my God. Kentucky, Alabama. Like, I talked about this in the beginning of the episode. I cannot wait to see them in like a tournament-like environment, a neutral site environment, because they're the teams with the highest variance this year. And why? Because they could score like crazy and they don't play defense. So like push comes to shove. Can these teams just, bear down and make stops? I really hope they end up playing each other, but also if you look at that very bottom part of the bracket, Florida is a pretty dangerous little 6 seed there. I think like they could definitely make a run. But
I was gonna ask you. I was not so sure that Kentucky and Alabama are actually gonna meet.
Oh no, it's just a possibility. Like
because of Florida. But yeah, you continue.
No, that's really what I've got. Like just this will be a huge litmus test for those teams. Top half, not as much of a fan. Like I think it's more likely to be Tennessee, although we've seen a lot of, worse teams being better teams in the SEC. But what are your guys' takes on this?
This might be the tournament I'm most excited for, because I don't know what's going to happen, especially in the bottom half of the bracket. It could be a combination. Like Wade Taylor can still go off for 35, right, and beat Kentucky. That's not unreasonable to say. I don't think, even though Texas A&M has had a super disappointing season, I still think those players are capable of pulling that type of upset. Will Auburn ever beat a good team that's not Alabama? Who's to say, right? Like it could be South Carolina and Tennessee for a third time, right? Those teams have tied 1-1, each winning on the road. I still think it's going to be Tennessee, like I said in the beginning here, but there could be 8 different combinations of teams in the finals coming in, and that's what I'm excited for. That's what I'm most excited for.
I want to pitch a question to you first, Ben, because I know that you pulled these graphics in. Did this come off the SEC official website?
This one did not. It just made it a little bit easier to read.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, this is the difference, and I'm moving back here a few spots. Like, you get the Big East basketball conference. Look at that beautiful graphic. Then you get the SEC. Like this.
No, I pulled this one. It was off of, I think, KSR maybe, but it's just you can see it at least. That's what I was thinking.
I like the logos.
I don't know. I'm still going to blame it. This is a football conference. I don't care about the SEC tournament. I never have. I do care about a couple games here, obviously, as a college basketball fan. Mississippi State is in danger. If they lose to LSU, which they definitely can, I already have Mississippi State out. I have Mississippi State behind the first 4. I am not high on Mississippi State. Some people have Mississippi State as high as a 10 seed. Most bracketologists always have one team that they are very far off on. And for me, that could be Mississippi State. To me, they just haven't done it this year. I'm almost rooting for them to lose just to say, hey, I told you so. This is not a tournament team. Obviously, I'm not. Like, I want to see all these guys. be able to play a good tournament. But they are in danger there. Mississippi State needs that win. So if you're a Mississippi State fan, you're watching this right now, you better beat LSU, because otherwise you are in danger of missing the tournament. Yeah, I am excited to see if honestly, I just want to see another Kentucky-Tennessee matchup in the SEC championship, like just for how good like that comeback was the other day. I do want to see that again, but I'm just like not sure if a lot of these games really matter, because like 1 through 6 are already locks. 7 over 10 in the Texas A&M game. I mean, I think Texas A&M is going to win that game, and that'll push them in the tournament. Like I look at that 8-9 Mississippi State LSU game, and then, like you said, like can Auburn be a good team? Like those are the scenarios for me. But other than that, like there's not a lot of movement here. But I could be dead off. This could be a crazy tournament. That's probably how it's going to end up being.
I hope Missouri beats Georgia. I really want them to get their first conference win. But that's my final take. We can go to Pac-12 now.
Sorry, I got a little excited about the Pac-12.
Yeah, very excited. No, I mean, like there's no reason theoretically that Arizona should not win this bracket, but they've very much shown that they're not trustworthy. So who knows? I mean, like this could be complete madness too. I would not be surprised to see even a bid stealer in this league, which would be great for the Pac-12 for all the talks that they've had about getting such little amounts of bids. I'm keeping an eye out for the 2 Los Angeles teams that we've kind of crapped on all year, UCLA and USC, as like bottom seeds that can make a run. I wish USC was on the bottom part of that bracket though, because I mean they just did beat Arizona, but I don't think lightning strikes twice there. But the way they're playing, they could potentially run through the bottom half, but tough for them. What are we making of this?
The seeds are just so odd to me. I don't know. Like the fact that USC is the 9th seed, like how bad were the other 3 teams? Things like that. How is Cal the 7th seed? What's going on here? Right? Jared Haas is getting fired if he loses to Cal, right? Or do you think he's already gone? Regardless.
I mean, that'd be pretty bad on the Stanford athletic program moving into the ACC next year. If you say, yeah, your fate is on beating Cal or not. You know what I'm saying? Like you can stay if you beat Cal.
Imagine they fire Haas and Matson goes and takes the Stanford job 1 year after taking the Cal job.
Who knows, man? It could.
Stanford alum, all that. I don't know, man. I think I remember when we were doing these previews, Dan, the 100 to 1, and I said that Colorado was the second best team in the Pac-12. Do you have a recollection of that?
Yeah. I mean,
it was behind USC, but I'll still take the fact that I said Colorado was the second best team in the Pac-12. It'd be fun to see a Colorado tournament champion in the last year. I think it'd be, they've only been in the league for a decade. You'd hope it's like UCLA or Arizona or one of the heavyweights, one of the stalwarts of the league. Yeah. But imagine Colorado, the Buffs come in here and take it up.
That is the most intriguing storyline of this, the fact that it's the last Pac-12 tournament.
Also, like, Washington and USC have 2 of the most lethal scorers in this bracket in Isaiah Collier and Keon Brooks. Like, imagine if one of them just goes off on Wednesday. They're just feeling it, and they just drop like 35 on Arizona. Like, it wouldn't put it past me. I mean, those teams, Washington to me, like same thing. Mike Hopkins obviously already out, like not really, kind of weird there how he's like allowed to stay with them. Whatever. It's weird. This is a major bracket.
Hopkins got fired.
What's up?
Hopkins got fired, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I may have misheard you there.
Yeah, he's like fired, but like, did I like he like because there was like the thing where like he's like allowed to stay with the team for a little bit, or
that is a thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it okay? I didn't see that part. I just thought you were saying, oh, Hopkins has a lifetime contract here, but no. Matt, I have a question for you. Arizona has played itself out of a 1 seed, right? Even if they statistically, let's break it down, right? Even if they win out and win the Pac-12 tournament, I think it's very unlikely that none of UNC, Tennessee, Marquette, and Iowa State win each of their conference tournaments, right? If one of those wins their conference tournament, don't you think they get the final 1 seed of Arizona?
Well, I already have Zona as like the second 2 seed.
Yeah.
But like, I will say what's helping Arizona is like they are 8-3 in quad 1, whereas Tennessee is 7-6 and UNC is 7-4. So there's obviously a strong case that Arizona still should be the final 1 seed. I moved them down because they now have a quad 3 loss. Like they're like on my little spreadsheet, the next team with a quad 3 loss would be Kentucky, who's all the way down to like a 4 seed or potential 3 if you're really high in Kentucky. So yeah, I think Arizona would need to win the Pac-12 and get some help if they wanted that 1 seed.
Not all quad 1 games are created equal though.
No.
Quad 1A is probably a different story there.
But, who'd they beat? Utah on the road? Is that quad 1?
I'd have to go look. I don't know.
No. I'm just saying. It's not the same as beating Kentucky.
I know that Arizona had a good non-conference though.
That is true. And November games should be weighted equally as January, February, March games. Like they play the games for a reason. I know there's predictive metrics, and if you're playing your best ball later, you're probably a better team, but you're picking the most deserving teams, not the best teams.
Yeah, for me, it's not even about the best, like the predictive metrics. I don't really care about those. It's more like I'd rather not watch a team that went 8-10 in conference get in over a mid-major with 4 losses just because they beat a top 5 team on November 18th or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. I think that'll wrap up today's episode. We might do a pre-selection Sunday show, but I think the Big Ten tournament will probably just run too long and that'll be useless. But we definitely will do a post-selection Sunday show. We'll preview the entire bracket, so that'll probably be the next time we are on. Thank you guys so much for the support. Be sure to give us a follow on all the socials, as you can see scrolling along on the screen. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you are watching there. And keep up with our content at CBB Review. We are covering every single conference tournament from the NEC to the Big 12. So, that will do it. Thanks for watching again and listening, and take care.